Hey everyone, John Henry here, SlingshotFutures.com. Welcome to the Daily Futures Market Outlook for tomorrow's trading. Tomorrow being the 6th of the month. Pretty slow today, coming into a pretty slow market to begin the day off in the in the morning session. But man, in the afternoon things really started heating up and caught quite a bit of movement in the afternoon session. And man, alive, if you were patient and you hung around and waited for the first 4 hours of nothing, you might have had something going on in the afternoon. Now, before we jump into the charts, as always, make sure to swing it over to slingshotfutures.com, scroll down, and click on the Join the Daily Outlook newsletter. From there, you're going to be able to sign up for our newsletter email list. You'll be notified every time one of these videos comes out. Along with that, in the email itself, we go over a bunch of things that we just don't have time to talk about during this video. It's going to cover stocks, options, crypto, you name it. If it's moving, it's going to show up in that newsletter in the email itself. So make sure to sign up so you don't miss any of those. Of course, along with that, if you haven't done this before, click on the live trade room subscription and trial info, and you can sign up for a free 3-day trial in the live trade room, so you can kind of get your feet a little bit wet, hang out with us for a couple days, and see what we're all about. It's a really good way to see kind of the inside look on what the room looks like and how it operates and all that fun stuff. It's just a good way to ask some questions and see what we're doing all morning. Now, of course, along with that, every once in a while you will see a video like this, live trade room example trade, where you can kind of see an inside look anyway, but it's nice to have a 3-day trial just so you can have a couple days in the room to see all kinds of different trading environments from slow to fast. Now, looking at the markets, the euro is catching a nice lift to the upside. Didn't quite fill that area in down here, but again, with this amount of bullishness to the upside, it's hard to argue that the buyers are trying to take back over. Now, interestingly enough, we never, it's one of those types of wedges that I didn't really want to get rid of because it held it so well inside there, held it as support, resistance, just kind of ping-pong back and forth. Then they finally broke down. Now we're back and they're using it as resistance. They actually opened up above that high as a gap and came all the way back down again, and now we're back in that last 4-hour bar, showing more resistance there again. So the euro obviously wants to do something with this area, and well, until it wants to get rid of it, well, we'll keep an eye on it. Now, a couple other areas, of course, horizontal support and resistance. 23,695 is the next most nearest one, and that's where the market's been bouncing all over the place as well. Low edge of the range, 22,545, and then of course the primary objective for a lot of buyers now that we have a good failed breakdown. We have this large wedge. They tried breaking out of the lows. That failed. Now we're gunning for the upside to see if we can get a new high, or at least back to the top of the range, and that's going to be at 25,295. The overall market movement that we're seeing right now is pretty bullish. Now, we did start the week off with a little bit of a gap up, and then it failed back down below that wedge bottom resistance. But that said, the buyers don't look like they've given up yet. We have a good amount of bullishness coming in, an inside bull bar, really bad follow through though. So even though the buyers do look like they are buying into these dips, it doesn't look so much like they're pumped about buying too high, just knowing that resistance is there. And that leads me to believe that we're probably looking for a deeper pullback. Now, of course, one area of major interest is whenever you have a range low like this and it fails to break out, when it pops back in, that becomes a monstrous area of support. And that's really what I'm looking for here on the euro, is just for the market to want to come back, retest that area at 22,545, and see if the participants still view this as support. If we can get a support bounce off of this, then we're looking for a potentially large move to the upside. But for right now in the overnight, we're probably going to go a little bit sideways to up, a little bit grindy inside of here. I don't think the buyers have given up, but at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised to see a pullback, and that means that when both sides have an argument, we probably go into a range. So looking to buy low, sell high, with emphasis on buying low, because it still does look like the buyers are giving it a shot. Looking for a grind back up to test 23,695, but man, I would really love a bounce off of 22,545 as proof. Now going on to gold, gold cycling off of major resistance from before. We had this area pegged from just monstrous amounts of support and resistance back and forth. They caught a nice rally to the upside, and guess what? As no surprises to be had here, bounced off of it as resistance. Now with not just a small bounce either. I mean, this is a pretty big bear bar to the downside, and so aggressive in that we're actually back inside of the bear channel. So we are seeing signs that the sellers are trying to drive the market lower. One thing that does, of course, stand out is simply the fact that this bear candle here is so big that sellers might not necessarily want to sell below that. They had good follow through, but a lot of traders might look at that and say, well, do I really want to sell here? It looks like the move is mostly done. I don't necessarily want to jump on in at the lows and have to deal with a pullback and then have it go in my favor. So a lot of traders may be looking for an intra-candle or intra-few candle pullback here for some short side selling. And that means that, well, we're probably looking at somewhat of a 50% pullback inside of here, and we can mark that up. If we zoom that in, Get rid of the 38.2. We're looking for the 50 to 61.8 zone in this case. And that's really what we're looking for. You know, we know the sellers are definitely in tune with a bear drop lower. That is a heavy bear drop. We're back underneath the channel highs, but they might just be looking for a slightly better price. And that means that around 1323.6 is the anticipation that sellers are going to try to get the move going off of that instead. They obviously don't want to sell this far down, so that is going to be an area of interest. Now, one thing that we do want to keep in mind, we do know that sellers will have sold underneath that big bear bar. And if that is the case, well, if it starts pulling back against them, they're going to be a little bit nervous. You know, their stops will be up here and they'll be fine, but that is going to make them question, wait a minute, is this a good position or did I pick the wrong place? So if we do get a correction back up here, we might find some support off of that area as a potential bouncing zone. And until we can break through that, it's going to have a hard time keeping going to the downside. So we do want to keep really an eye on their entry point, right? And their entry point is going to be one tick below that 4-hour bar. That 4-hour bar's low is at 1320.5. So if we take a horizontal line here, 1320.5, 1320.4. An extra one in there. 1320.4 is going to be the area where sellers will have jumped on in to try to drive the market a little bit lower. So we want to keep an eye on that. That is going to be the area of interest. If we get a nice bounce off the 50%, we're probably going to find some support off of that 20.4. If we can start breaking through it, then we have a clear shot at the downside, at least down to around 1308. But we got to see if we can break through that low first. Over on crude oil, pretty good bull cycle off of the bottom. They had that trap off the previous swing low. It ended up in a double bottom and actually trapped it again, right? Not only did we have the trap below that low, but they actually came back and trapped it again and then shot higher. A lot of sellers will have been in this move, and they arguably have their scalp targets out, so it doesn't look like many sellers are trapped per se. I think this is more of sellers who didn't take profit at the lows, the logical area coming into rising support. Remember, at the time, we had this as rising support. Sellers who didn't take their profit here, those are the only ones that are left holding the bag right now. And I don't think that's necessarily enough to make the market go flying higher on stop runs or anything like that. I think this is mostly just due to the fact that buyers wanted to buy a low, and what better place than not only buying below this low, but buying the next trap underneath that even better. So I think it's just a swarm of buyers, especially given that that went into a bull engulfing candle with continuation to the upside. Now we're looking for an objective at 62.85. This area has been the area that buyers have been looking for since the trap at 60.75, and it's looking really nice. You know, the next area of interest, once we start getting past this 62.85, not too far away. We have a falling wedge top coming into play next, and of course some of these minor little swing highs inside of here do line up with some previous price action. If we go back a little bit, you can see the market did cluster around there a little bit as well. So that's going to be the next area of interest. You know, going into the overnight session, this is a very big bar right here, and that does look potentially a little bit exhaustive. It wouldn't bother me at all to see a slight pullback, you know, inside of this, just knowing that the buyers really don't want to jump in right at the highs. Kind of the similar situation we were talking about on gold there, and see them maybe pull back to 62. Still looking for the overnight session to have bullish continuation after that pullback, though. So looking for an objective at 62.85, maybe even a little bit further to the wedge top. Probably won't happen until tomorrow, though. And then over on the S&P. S&P also seeing a low swing trap and reversing the market right back up. New wedge bottom support is being created on this reversal, and just a beautiful bounce off of that low. Sellers tried driving the market lower in that monster bear bar. Absolutely no follow through. And notice what happens if we zoom in here. We see the sellers with this huge bear bar thinking that it's going to be a breakout. Absolutely no follow through whatsoever, and they start getting a little bit nervous. We finally get a little bit of a drive, and then it fails right back up. That is a no-go. They're going to begin exiting at break even, and the market goes flying in the opposite direction. So very likely this has the potential to see us not only catching a bull lift, but also catching a bull lift and maybe even breaking back above 2790 going on to 2800s. That's how strong of a potential reversal this could be, especially knowing that all the sellers that try to drive the market down have now exited. The only thing that we might find one more time is the market participants seeing a pullback to that area and then holding it one more for one more go. One thing that I love seeing in these types of situations is you have that bear move down. They get a huge bear bar down, right? We don't even have to draw that. Just draw a huge bear bar. And sellers will sell underneath that, right? They're looking for a sell underneath that, and they end up getting bad follow through, and it reverses back up. Sellers see that, they get nervous, and they begin exiting at break even, and they have that break even test right there. The market bounces up, and then you'll see it come back again, but this time it will miss that break-even point by a tick or two, and that shows that the sellers who did sell down here didn't take it at break-even. Now we're just looking to get out, right? They don't care if it's a small loss. They're just looking to mitigate their damage on the account by just exiting when it comes close. You know, a point or two away, fine, cut it, let's go and get out, and then you'll end up seeing somewhat of a, you'll see a bull bar that will look somewhat like, a halfway decent bull bar. Could have some wick on the top, wick on the bottom, but you won't see it actually test that break-even point. And if that type of formation occurs, you'll have a huge amount of stops above that bull bar, with all the sellers who are still hanging on and hoping that they can get out of break-even, and that usually ends up firing off a huge move to the upside. And that, again, could see us move all the way back up towards those highs. We haven't had that near test yet. That would be the next thing on the docket. And if we can't get something like that, man alive, better strap in, because we might have one heck of a bull rally on our hands afterwards. So far, though, in the overnight session, anticipating slight bullishness into range-bound movement. I would still love to see that pullback back to test, those lows. That their entry point would be one tick below that low at 26.71.5, so 71.25. We can mark that up right here. So if we mark that up, 71.25, and that's going to be the big area of interest. So that's going to be the one that I'm going to be looking for in the overnight session for potential bouncing. Outside of that, though, looking for the bulls to continue this rally to the upside. It looks very strong, and even if it does pull back, anticipating buyers just buying into that low to shove the market back up. Primary objective going into this week is going to be back into 2800s for some bullish continuation here to see if they can finish off that nice rally. So that's going to do it for the outlook. Now, for tomorrow's news, we don't have a whole lot to work with. The only thing that we have tomorrow, big news, mind you, is out of Australia, and that doesn't happen until 19:30 Eastern time in the afternoon evening session. They're going to be launching their GDP for quarter 4. Forecast is 0.5%. For the U.S. session, we don't have anything to worry about. So not really anything to worry about there going into the U.S. session for tomorrow's trading. And that probably means that, today was a sleeper, but we did have a lot of blow-off movement in the afternoon. So tomorrow morning, probably going to see a lot of the same, where the market's just not really able to go anywhere, and we get a little bit stuck. Either way, it doesn't matter what market you're trading or what market you are looking at trading. If you don't have anything on the table yet, always, always, always make a plan, trade the plan, follow those rules, and you'll be okay. Until next time, we'll see y'all then.